Hi, everybody. I had to tase a patient the other day, and I have to admit, it's really been bothering me. I've really been thinking about it a lot. I'm not sure if I did the right thing. And so I wanted to tell you guys this story so that maybe you can help me sort of, I don't know, just see if I did the right thing. So I started seeing this young woman she was a patient. I didn't start boinking her, right? She was a UCLA student. Not that I wouldn't have. Well, okay, sorry. Let me just explain the story. So she went to UCLA, and I'd say she was about 19. And her name was Elizabeth Crockford. I'm allowed to say that because we're not seeing each other as a patient, right? Anymore. That relationship, the doctor-patient relationship, was severed. So I'm not bound by HIPAA or any of this stuff. So her problems were pretty run-of-the-mill. She was very homely. She, kind of a girl next door type thing. Again, if you're into that, that's fine. I'm more of a Corvette guy, if you ask me. But she was cute. I don't know. And so like I said, pretty garden variety stuff she was dealing with, but there was this one incident that she kept bringing up over and over and over again. The first session, she probably brought it up 3 times, and the second session, I completely lost track of how many times she brought it up. And eventually I said, you seem to be really hung up on this. What's the big deal? Not what's the big deal, but it was bad, but it wasn't anything that we haven't all heard a million times on a true crime documentary, So I'm pretty desensitized to this kind of stuff. A lot of times friends will try to show me movies and things, and they'll think that I'm going to be really shocked, and they're like, this is so effed up, and then I'm like, or a similar thing will happen with a patient where they're telling me a story and I can tell they think it's really effed up, but I'm like, because I hear this kind of thing all day in and day out, and I like effed up stuff. So yeah, she because of something unrelated, I think, she started to cry. And so I said, okay, what? And she said, nothing. Let's just talk about something else. I think so we meandered around in conversation for a little bit, and then she said, actually, I've got to do something. I've got to go early. Yeah, right. Like I was born yesterday. So I said, okay, well then should we set up, you want to do same time next week? And then she was like, I might have to, ooh. And so I said, all right, forget it. Let's just get out of here. We can be done if you want. I can take a hint. She left. And then, how when you get in an argument with somebody and you're clearly right, but you just didn't explain yourself very well in the moment. So the whole day you're just pissed off and you're thinking about all the things you wish you would have said. That's kind of what was going on with me that day. And then the more I thought about it, the more I said, you know what? This actually might be really good, because now I think I know exactly what to do. My opinions on PTSD, I think honestly it's very overblown, but clearly she thought she had it, right? So there's this thing called exposure therapy, where let's say somebody was a germaphobe. The way that we would treat them using exposure therapy was we would have the person hold a sandwich and then dunk the sandwich into the toilet and then take a bite of the sandwich. And then they would see everything's fine and they're just a crazy person. Or if they're afraid of bees, we might have the person kick a bee's nest and then see that I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but it's a similar thing. Basically, you expose them to the thing that they're afraid of and they realize it's not a big deal and they get over it. So I looked up Elizabeth's address, and she had given me her address as part of the onboarding. And her dorm room, as it turns out, is not very far from where I live. So that night, I I have in my car, I have a who's the Jason, a Jason mask and a big butcher's knife. So I went over to her apartment, and she was telling me that every Tuesday night she goes to some nerd, Dorks Anonymous, right? Something like that. So I got out of my car and I went behind a bush with the Jason mask and the butcher's knife, and I waited for her to come out. And then there she comes, little Elizabeth. And then I jump out with the butcher's knife, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill you. And she's like, oh my God, please help me, oh my God. And she's running down, there she is running, And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kill you. It's chasing after her. And I chased after her for, not very long. I think probably 10 blocks. And then eventually I said, all right, that's my workout for tonight. I let her go, and I said, yeah, mission accomplished. First therapy session complete, right? So then the next night, I come back. Well, not the next night. The next week, excuse me. Next Tuesday, when she has, Dorks Anonymous again. I come back. I do the same thing. I go behind the same bush, and I wait for her to come out. And this time she's walking out with a friend. So both of them, I don't know what good the friend would have done, because she was also very tiny. But not like I was going to do anything. I'm just saying, if from her perspective, it didn't make any sense to bring this friend, because, it would have been like there were two, what's something that's really flimsy? Man, I'm telling you, I'm on a new medication. It's really effing up my ability to come up with funny fucking metaphors. Anyway, it just would have been it would have been like two, I really want to get this. What's something flimsy that would be really easy to... Scarecrows is stupid. Two toothpicks. It would have been like two toothpicks, karate chopping two toothpicks. So both of her and her friend, I jump out again. And I'm swinging the butcher's knife. And I'm like, I'm gonna kill you. And they're both running like, I'm running. This time I chased them for a lot longer, probably half hour. I don't know. Might not have been actually a half hour, but when I was in high school, I used to do cross country, and I could run a mile in about 8 minutes. So if it was it was probably 3 miles. It was a workout. But I like to every night I try to go for a walk around my neighborhood anyway, so it was no different really for me. It was just another workout. And towards the end, I was getting pretty winded. And so I stopped and I took my mask off and I said, Elizabeth, it's me. It's your therapist, Dan. Stop. Let me explain. I can explain everything. And that her and her friends started running faster. And they kept running. And I was like, come on. Jeez. The therapy doesn't work unless you explain it afterwards. So the following week, I come back again. And I don't have the Jason mask. I don't have the butcher's knife. I'm thinking I'm just going to be me, and I'm going to explain the whole situation calmly and collected. So I don't go behind the bush. I'm just kind of pacing around outside the front of her dorm room, waiting for her to come out so I can explain the situation. And time passes. 7 o'clock, when she's supposed to go to her club, passes by. 7:30, 7:45, and I'm like, okay, she's not coming out. So it's very easy to sneak into places these days, because I look pretty normal, so I can just kind of like wait for somebody to open the door. So I waited for somebody to open the dorm room door, and then I slipped right in after him, and I was like, oh, thanks, And she had written her dorm, the number of her dorm room on her patient onboarding form. So I walked up the stairs and I found her dorm door. And I thought about knocking, but I did not. I just figured that it would be, you know how in a rom-com, when there's just if only the person would hear one specific piece of information that would totally fix everything, the entire problem, but they just won't listen, and then there's for some reason that they keep walking off, or and it's like, just explain the one thing. That's kind of what this was like. And people make when I say that I kicked down the door, that makes it sound like it was a lot worse than it was. Basically, I realized the door was it wasn't that big of a deal. It was a very flimsy door. It was basically like I opened it with a little bit more force, right? It wasn't, when I say, I kicked down the door, but that makes it sound like I was coming in there like a maniac, and I literally just opened it with force. Because I knew that if I said who I was, Elizabeth wasn't going to let me in. And not because that was right of her, but because she was under a mistaken impression, because I didn't get to explain myself the last night. So she was thinking, the reason that she's afraid of me is wrong, and I need to correct that mistake. But I'm only going to be able to be in a position to do that if I just get her to listen to me. So I kick open the door. Again, I say that, but it wasn't. Anyway. And then her and her roommate are both like, ah! And I'm like, oh, brother, just listen to me. And so I say, listen to me. And she's like, backed up against the wall, and she starts getting an X-Acto knife. She picked up an X-Acto knife and started trying to stab me. And so I have a taser for self-defense. And I take out the taser. She was trying to stab me. So I take out the taser and I shoot her with the taser. And so she goes like, falls to the ground. And I rest my foot on her, not neck. It was, I don't even remember if I did put my foot on her. I don't think I did. Maybe I did. I don't know. I sort of lost track of what was going on. It's a high adrenaline situation. And I say, Elizabeth, listen to me for just 5 seconds and I can explain this. I was doing something called exposure therapy because you had PTSD from this incident. So now you're going to be fine, basically, because I exposed you to the thing you were afraid of, and now you realize it's not a big deal. So you should be okay now. And then I left. That's all I wanted to say. Then I left. Everything's fine. That's all I wanted to say. So yeah, I said, okay, goodbye, good night, have a good night. And then by now the dorm security people, because she was screaming her head off for no reason. So now everybody thinks there's some kind of problem, and everybody's like, excuse me, sir, can we, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, there's no problem. I'm Elizabeth's therapist. Can you please just let me out? I took care of what I wanted to take care of. I want to go home. There's no problem here. There's nothing to see here. Goodbye. And I take the stairs. I try to get out. Now campus security's here. So I'm like, guys, I really feel like that there's been a misunderstanding. Just let me leave. And at first they kind of tried to block me. But campus security is only there so that it looks like somebody's doing something. Right? They don't even have I'm more armed than they were. So I was able to get past them, and then I just got in my car and I left, and then I left and I went home. Now, At first, I was all amped up because I was like, yes, I am such a great guy. I did exactly the right thing. Everything's fine. But then the more I thought about it, I was trying to sleep that night, and I kept thinking back to Elizabeth's face. The way that she looked at me, I've never seen anybody that scared before. She was terrified. And I don't know, it's just one of those things where sometimes you wonder if you're really helping people or not. Because I'm not perfect. Sometimes I make mistakes. So yeah, maybe I don't know. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I don't know. You try so hard to be a good person, and I just feel like a lot of times you can do things and you have the best intentions, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. I think that's a Linkin Park song. It's a good song. Yeah. So I don't know. That's the end of the story. I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on it because it's really been eating me up. It's really been bothering me. I've been kind of upset, to be honest. Okay. I cleaned my car the other day with bleach and rubbing alcohol, and now every time I'm in here for a long time, I feel like there's like acid in my throat. Okay, goodbye.